Like moths to a flame, you've thrown caution to the wind for a glimpse into our world. Well, now you're in it.
Welcome to Effed Up Stories.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Effed Up Stories. I am your host, Will Pender.
And I'm your co-host, Ryan Sharp.
And tonight we are doing another user-submitted story, this time on a possessed doll. Now, how awesome is that? I've really been on an off-topic. I've really been wanting to see that movie. I think it's called The Boy, and it's based on a doll, and it really reminded me of that story we just covered on Robert the Doll. Anyway, mental note. If anyone's seen it and it was any good, if you want to chime in the comments and let me know if it was any good, that'd be cool. So anyway, this is on a possessed doll. It was submitted by Holly. And Holly, if I mispronounce your last name, my apologies. It's kind of my thing. It looks like Viali. Ryan, are you?
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize there was a question mark at the end of that. Viali, yeah. I guess that could work.
Holly Viali. And if we're wrong, my apologies. This was submitted on my birthday. Cool, right? February 27th. Damn good day. So, it's on a possessed doll. Before we jump into that, though, a couple things I want to jump in and talk about. If you have an effed up story of your own and would like to get that into a podcast and on the website, we'd love to get it from you, and you can do that by submitting it on the official website, which is I'm having a drink here. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of hiccups here. But I know I got a problem, right? But anyway, if you want to get that to us, you can do it on the official website, which is effedupstories.com. That's effedupstories.com. Go to the menu, submissions, fill out the form, hit submit. We'll get it and put it on the website and get it into a podcast. Awesome, right? I've actually been getting a lot of submissions lately, so we get a lot of podcasts coming your way, which reminds me, I have to say this, guys, because I almost feel guilty. I really honestly do try to get back to everybody. Every submission I will get onto the website. But, I'm one guy, and, the more popular we get, the harder it is to keep up. So right now I'm regularly running on it's like I'm 2 weeks behind on everything. So I'm not trying to be late getting back to anybody. I'm not ignoring anything, but
it's just a question of volume.
It's a question of volume, and I do my best, but I work full time. I got a wife. I got stuff aside from that, so I do my best, but I'm definitely 2 weeks behind pretty regularly now. So if you don't hear from me right away, don't fret. I will get to it, and I know that sometimes just emails will say, not a submission, just like emails, like people like to send me links to stuff and stuff like that. I try to check it all out. I know that there's sometimes that I don't get back or something like that, and my apologies again. It's just one of those things that I try to tag all my emails, like I flag them try to remember to go back and do them, but there's just so much, and time moves so fast, and there's only so much I can do. So if I missed anybody or I forgot to get back to you, I apologize. You could try again, or just send me a message or let me know somewhere else. It really isn't intentional. It's just it's really hard to catch up. With that said, though, I just wanted to get that out there and let you guys know. Also, we are collecting information on anything you guys can give us on reptilians. And some of you have submitted me some information, some links. It's great. We're collecting it for one of our donators, and he wants to be anonymous, just known as the eccentric listener. We're going to be doing a custom podcast for him because of his generous donation, and his custom podcast is on reptilians. And he also has a personal reason he wants to know about this. It's personal to him. It's something he wants to learn more about, because I guess it involves him personally. Actually, you know what? He had something there. Just hang on a second. See if I got this. Okay. So again, he's anonymous, but he did want me to read this dream, I guess, that got him into this fascination he has with reptilians. And maybe he thought that someone might be able to tell you something about this or whatever. So here's what he says. He had a rather intense dream at one point where he felt that he was first presented with a scene of a rundown house. And he said he got the feeling that it was a small mobile home, or mobile type home, with cheaply made wooden steps. He entered the house and saw a room without furnishings and a dirt floor. And there was children's clothes on the floor, as if people were living there, although he didn't see anybody. And all of a sudden, there was a scenery change. He saw a typical park or green in a New England town. And in the backdrop was an elevated landscape with woods. And he saw this very fat man in a tie wearing a hard hat talking to some construction workers. And nearby, there was earth-moving equipment, and a hole was dug as if there was a foundation being built. And he said next he saw the reptilian. He really only saw his eyes, but he did see the skin, and he said the skin was reddish-brown with thing scales. And I guess he's referencing the movie, but he said it had thing scales. He said the eyes were very much human, yet there was this reddish glow coming from them. He said the reptilian was very pissed, but not at him. He said he or it was pissed by the contrasts it was presenting him. Then he was shown the dirt floor in the mobile home again. This is a series of scenes, by the way. So he goes back there. He sees the dirt floor in the mobile home. Next, he sees a field, which he understood to be New England. It was late evening. He would see the sun setting in the background. He said there were high bulrushes in the field, and there were woods on the other side of the field. He said there was a stone wall that split the field, which he could barely make out, but did not totally, this wall did not totally divide the field. And at the end of the stone wall, there was a scarecrow. And then he saw the reptilian's eyes again. This is all that he really remembers from the dream, but I guess he's going to outline what makes this significant to him. He said he does not consider this an abduction, but it was very highly vivid and unusual. He was wondering if this was something generated by his subconscious mind, or if it was transmitted to him. He said he studied UFO matters before and heard that people who are having very vivid dreams about aliens are indeed communicating to them via the dream. So he found this information discovery to be strangely coincidental. He said his interpretation is as follows. This reptilian seems to be very angry by the contrast images he was showing him, and he assumes this to be that it was conveying that this world is controlled by a super elite who thinks it can do whatever it wants, even destroy the planet without consequences to the planet or anything or anybody else living in it. The field with bulrushes is symbolic of confusion and lies put forth by the reptilian, lies and confusion put forth about the reptilians. He said the wall, which does not split the entire field, symbolizes efforts to block people from seeing the truth about the reptilians, and the scarecrow at the end of the wall symbolizes that they, I guess the elite, want us to be afraid of reptilians, yet there is no need to be afraid of them at all. It was late evening in the field with the sun setting and getting dark for humanity. Ever since then, he's wanted to know the truth about reptilians, the ugly, the bad, the good, and he gave me permission to put this out in a podcast, hopefully that somebody can shed some light on it or whatever. So yeah, that's his dream, what got him interested in the reptilian topic. And if anybody has any information or insight into that, I would appreciate it if you could send that to me. Now, with that having been said, because we will be doing a reptilian custom podcast for him in the future, so anything you can give me, of course, could end up in that podcast. With that said, we're going to jump into the topic of tonight, which is on the possessed doll sent in by Holly Viali. Okay, so this happened when she was a baby. It happened specifically to her older brother and sister, which are respectively 8 and 4 years older than her. She said her family is of Native American descent. Specifically, their tribe is of the Blackfeet Nation. Her parents were proud, no-nonsense people with strong Catholic beliefs that didn't include déjà vu, dreams, seeing and hearing spirits, etc. But despite this, both sides of her family are gifted in the way that lets them experience these various facts previously mentioned. They were told to ignore these different episodes in their life and to just move on in happy-go-lucky fashion and to constantly pray. This particular incident was so scary that when she, the movie Child's Play, when that came out with Chucky, it reminded her sister of the experience that happened, and it's like she relapsed and had to go through the process of telling the whole story over again. So this incident took place around the holidays just before Christmas. She said her dad let her mom take Andy, that's her brother, and Colleen, her sister, to the Salvation Army to get a present since it was tough times and there would be no other presents this year. It pained her parents to do this, but a friend referred them and they felt pity on the children, so they, decided to let them go. So her brother Andy and sister Colleen got various little toys and candies. One of these toys that Colleen received was a 4-foot tall doll. And she said that you can actually still get this doll at Walmart. It's still on sale today. But anyway, after they went to the Salvation Army, they picked up their stuff. They went home, and later on the parents had to go somewhere, and they left Andy and Colleen by themselves for a bit in the home. And Colleen was so excited to have this doll that she took it to bed with her, during which Andy, the brother, was watching TV when suddenly Colleen called out, "Andy, Andy," in a rather panicked voice. "This doll is talking to me." And he just shouted back to her, "Just go to sleep or I'll tell mom and dad on you." This is bullshit. I don't want to be dealing with this. So anyway, Colleen kept complaining until finally Andy became very concerned and went into the room and turned on the light. And, I want to emphasize this because I don't understand what it means. Holly doesn't understand what it means. It's kind of a part of the mystery of the story, but the doll kept saying 2020, and she has this spelled like the number 2 OH and over again, like 2020, whatever that means. And it was also saying different filthy cuss words and other garbled words which they couldn't understand. So this doll was almost sounds like it was speaking in this butchered English language in nonsensical, sensible phrases, but at the same time it had this cursing going on and this bizarre 2020, whatever the hell that means. And anyway, they had this little terrier, a dog named Tramp, And the dog just would not stop barking. It was growling. It was snapping at the doll. Andy, the brother, he pulled the doll out of the bed and threw it into the closet and put this old blanket over its face, get it out of the way. Meanwhile, Colleen was scared, and the dog just would not let up because this doll, despite being in the closet, was still going off and going off. It was just going on and on. And so the brother got his baseball bat and just, he slammed it onto that doll until he was tired. He just beat the shit out of it. And despite this, the thing just wouldn't stop talking. And it just kept saying 2-0, 2-0. And cursing profusely. And so Andy, getting fed up with this, he picks the doll up, blanket and all, he takes it outside, and he threw it into this giant dumpster. And shortly after which the parents come back. And right away, the kids run to the parents, they tell them what had happened, and the parents got angry and said, you kids ruined the blanket, you ruined the doll, you kids probably destroyed it while you were playing with it, you ruined Christmas and possibly the entire evening, right? So anyway, the parents aren't that happy about it. Anyway, that's what happened. So they go to bed. The doll is gone. They're told to just say their prayers and go to sleep. And the brother Andy, he handled the situation. He was the older brother. He dealt with it. And, that was the case. But the parents, even later on just said, don't talk about it anymore. Forget about it. Tomorrow's a new day. And that's generally how things were done in her home. They just didn't deal with that stuff. They didn't want to deal with it. Whatever the parents said went, and that was it. That was it. So, to this day, the sister Colleen and Holly, they don't understand why the doll kept saying 2-0, 2-0, let alone why it was haunted or possessed. Because let's face it, something was not right. The brother Andy doesn't want to talk about it unless, I guess you got to pry it out of him. You got to, if you ask him, he doesn't want to talk about it to this day. He's kind of traumatized, I guess, from it. He saw the Child's Play movie, and he found that funny. Apparently, he enjoyed it, but you bring up this doll, you just don't want to have any part of it. So that's the end of Holly's story. And she said, she swear on a stack of Bibles that it's true, and many other things happened throughout the years together as kids. But those are other stories, which I guess alludes to the fact that just maybe she might submit some more. So this is another tale of a haunted doll.
Do you know, and this is a perhaps a very prescient fact, do you know where the word doll comes from?
I'm not offhand.
Idol.
I heard that before.
I think we may have covered it before, but whenever these stories come up, me, not a religious guy, but all ancient human myths and stories and whatever, they all have their root in something.
Yes.
And I seem to remember quite a lot of talk about thou shalt not and dealing with idols.
Right. That's actually a really good point.
What's your take? What are dolls if not just idols of people? They're just they're what's the word? They're facsimiles or caricatures or shit. That's all you need to do. All you need for certain dark voodoo practices.
What is it about dolls? Like, okay, we know we have cursed objects, right? I mean, we've heard of paintings, we've heard of cursed cars, we've heard of cursed car parts, cursed lamps,
rings,
cursed pictures, rings, jewelry. So what is it?
I have a theory.
Okay.
I have a theory. So whenever we talk about spirits or entities from that seem to be from, I don't want to say a mystical realm, but seem to be from this there's a whole host of entities and beings that we have recorded contact with through over thousands of years, that, some of them sound like aliens stepping off of a ship, and then others of them sound like, these non-physical kind of what we refer to as spiritual entities. So, perhaps there's a whole other place. And I mean, we've talked about this in the past. A whole another level or vibrational layer or dimension or whatever word you want to use for it, where there are entities, beings, spirits, whatever you want to call them, that are very specifically affected by geometry. Now, all throughout all these different spiritual and religious practices, you see all these very specific, very special, symbols or arcane shapes, and sometimes it requires figurines. There's different rituals and different spells and this kind of thing to deal. A lot of it has to do with symbols and symbology. And I've often wondered if, entities from this realm, and perhaps there's a very wide variety of them, and some of them are smart like us, and some are no smarter than, a chimpanzee or something like that. But perhaps there's a whole swath of them, but they're all kind of affected by geometry in a way. They're drawn to symbols. They're drawn to this kind of, and we see this even in a three-dimensional space, like what's that house?
Amityville?
No. The crazy house with the old lady.
Oh,
Is that,
we did a podcast on this, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know. It's a type of Winchester house.
The Winchester house, right.
I knew it was a gun. I kept coming up with Worcester sauce.
Oh, geez, you just made me wheeze like a fucking old man.
I was thinking Winchester, and all I could get was Worcester.
You're hungry when, right?
Yeah, exactly. Time for a break. Anyway, in that case, it seemed that she was building a three-dimensional kind of geometry that was keeping these spirits trapped or confused.
Well, it was a maze, right?
Exactly. Again, just another this idea of geometry. But I wonder if there's something. Leonardo da Vinci has this whole drawing of the perfect human male shape and female shape, and how that corresponds to the Fibonacci sequence. That there definitely seems to be some kind of sacred geometry that is related to our bodies. And, some of this is looked at in physiogamy. There's certain correlations where, like your hand will be exactly from the bottom of your palm to the tip of your finger is like the length of your face. Or, like the length of your foot is one half the length of your thigh, or, like there's these correlations. I can't remember what all of them are, or if any of those are even correct. But if you look at it, there's certain, physical correlations between certain parts of your body seems to imply an overall, I don't want to say geometrical structure, because we're not, triangles and squares, but there is a geometry to it, and it seems to be related to the Fibonacci sequence, and I know there are relations to sacred geometry, and I wonder if that form, if you create that form, even whether you make it with meat or you make it with wood or you make it with cloth and stuffing, that perhaps if it's done just so and under the right circumstances, if certain entities or beings might not be just drawn to that the same way that they're drawn to these different symbols, whether they're pentagrams or or crosses, or there's all the different glyphs and seals of the demons, and all this different stuff that maybe the human body is patterned so that it has a similar effect on these beings. That there's something about the Fibonacci sequence of our bodies, in that sacred geometry that makes up the human form, that doesn't draw them, and perhaps that can be replicated even using a doll or a facsimile of a human.
So basically, when we, like you said, like in magic, in rituals, all different things where geometry is so important and symbolism, maybe it's more than just, the idea that it's shaped a certain, it's more than just it being symbolism or whatever. Like there's an actual science behind the shape and what's happening.
Yes, I think that perhaps, to a spirit, certain forms and certain types of geometry, certain, combinations of lengths and angles and shapes might in fact be like a lightning rod for a spirit. And maybe that perhaps the human form and the various, mathematical numbers that we're made up out of. Because if you start measuring stuff, there's all these very interesting mathematical properties about the human body. And I mean, let's face it, when we're talking about paranormal things, we can't just divorce ourselves from the rest of the world of how we understand it, right? I mean, we understand science and we understand biology and physics and geometry and mathematics and how these things relate to one another. And I think that, I think the paranormal and the supernormal, the Fortean, however you want to put it, I think those things are real things. And I think that they all will have some kind of relation with mathematics, physics, biology, because that's part of the universe, right? I mean, that's it, you can't separate them. And I think we think about it in this divorced manner so often. But I definitely think that there's a correlation between the actual, geometry of the human form and, the fact that we attract every goddamn spirit that drifts through our oh, look at these things over here, No,
I think you're right. In fact, I mean, what is DNA if not code, right?
Oh, well, our code in computers is 010101. In human DNA code, it's way more advanced. It's not binary, 01. It's quaternary, ACTG. It's a whole order or two orders of magnitude more complicated than any machine code.
But the concept is still the same in that it's still a formula, right? And, it's interesting, like physiogamy, for example. I remember I looked at that years ago. A decade ago.
And for those who don't know, physiogamy is?
Well, it's basically the different shapes, your traits as a person.
The study of the physical makeup is generally the face and the head.
Yeah, basically, have you ever looked at somebody and you had an immediate dislike of the person, and on a rational level, you're thinking you don't know them, you don't have any reason to not like them, but there's something about them that you hate. And, the physiogamy is the study of the face and these traits, and basically, in its most basic form, it's saying that, certain traits of a person's personality is reflected in certain physical traits on their face. So, when you look at somebody, and for reasons unknown to you, you hate them, it could very well be that there's features on their face that on a subconscious level, that you hate that personality trait or something like that. Like, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why you would look at, certain people rub you the wrong way and you can't explain it. There is a real reason behind it. It's just you don't put it together. It's on a subconscious level. You look at the face. And
I've looked at physiogamy a couple of times, and my personal take on it is that there may in fact be certain strings of DNA that enforce more strongly certain types of personality traits, but in those strings of DNA are also the codes for certain physical traits as well. That it's the same way that we would breed dogs for certain behaviors, right? And those behavior, like we bred them for the behavior, but we always end up with a specific look. And that's because there are strings of DNA where behaviors and physical appearances are connected. So there could be could very well be a statistical reason for us to instinctually look at somebody and see features that indicate, okay, their measurements are off, and I know that generally means through a million years of evolution that they probably have these really aggressive personality traits, or they're liars or whatever. I think that this is one of those gray area kind of studies where some people are like, oh, that's all woo woo, kind of garbage. That's the word they use for it, right? Woo woo, woo woo stuff.
I've never heard that before, but it's kind of funny.
I've heard it several times now. I don't know why it's popular, but people seem to resonate with it and understand what it means. It's
that's a bunch of fucking woo woo.
That's
right there.
Woo woo kind of. I think they even use it on the X-Files. Anyway, people seem to connect physiognomy with things like palm reading and tarot cards, and not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with palm reading or tarot cards, but I think that there might actually be some real statistically verifiable scientific kind of connections between physiognomy and between your physical features, and your attitudes and behaviors.
Well, it's funny that we're on this topic because there's something that I noticed that we both have a physical trait on our face, and it's a new thing. It's it's only really being looked at now.
A double chin.
Well, besides that, no, I was going to say we have this thing called resting bitch face.
Oh,
and
I think that's used mostly for women, isn't it?
No, it's on men too. And essentially, what it is, I mean, you and I, in real life, right? If we're hanging out or we're with people we know, I mean, we joke around, we're laughing and stuff like that. But outside of that, we're in a store, we're by ourselves. In other words, we don't have a reason to laugh or a reason to smile. We look angry, or we look.
Oh, see, I always just call that my sidewalk face.
No. You can call it that, but that is your natural. It's not because you're mad. It's just that's it's how you are. It's like I can feel myself like that when I'm out in the store sometimes, and I think to myself, like, man, people must think I'm a dick because like I know what I look like. But it's not that I'm mad. It's not that I'm being bitchy. I could be in the best of moods. If there's nothing there to make me smile or laugh, I don't. And I even have that problem. Like, okay, I'm not part of this generation with the whole selfie thing. Like, I might have had like 3 pictures taken of me in like the last decade or something like that. And there's always been a purpose for it, right? Like, okay, we needed something for the podcast background, or, my wife wanted to take a picture of us together. Like, I don't do the selfie thing. So there's very few pictures of me that are modern, we'll say, but when I do have to do it, and I say this because I had to recently, because me and my wife got our pictures taken together, I have a real hard time smiling in the picture because I don't have like there's not like I need to pick up my cat or something like that. Like there's got to be something to make me smile.
So you were like a farmer picture in like the turn of the century, standing
Yeah.
there with his pitchfork and his resting bitch face.
Right, like the resting bitch face farmer. And like the thing is that like I mostly joke all the time. Like I'm laughing all the time. It's kind of fucking weird, right? Like it's the opposite of what I'm mostly like, but I can't fake it. I cannot fake that stuff. Like people go around all the time. You see somebody, you pass a coworker, they smile. I can't fucking do it. I try to avoid eye contact, right?
Well, I think that might have something to do with your German heritage.
My German.
So
Okay.
let me ask you this, because I've been mulling this over since I read the story. 2020.
Yes.
What the
To
fuck?
me, it sounds like time.
Yeah. Well, it. I don't know what it sounds like to me. 20? Do you think that that's a reference to a time?
Well, I expect to hear a clock, 2:00, right?
20, and it just doesn't finish.
It just doesn't finish. I mean, let's face it. It's a fucked up doll. He's sitting there. He's spitting garbled English. He's swearing, or she, whatever it was. But I mean, let's face it. I'm totally just guessing here. I don't know what 2-0 means. In fact, I asked the audience, what do you think 2-0 means? And why would it keep repeating this? I don't know. Like, it's a strange story, and maybe that's part of the reason why I liked it so much. It reminds me of like the Simpsons Halloween, right? Like Homer steps into that curiosity shop or something like that, and he ends up getting Bart a Krusty doll, right? It's like, and then they do that whole bit with the doll is cursed, but it comes with free Frogurt, but the Frogurt is cursed. And it wasn't a curiosity shop, but they stopped at this Salvation Army, so who knows where it came from, right? The doll itself.
Somebody maybe desperately trying to get rid of
a cursed doll, or perhaps the doll was used in like black magic or some kind of ritual, and but then again, and this is the part. I mean, you had a really interesting theory on why you think like a spirit would go into a doll. Perhaps it is a geometry, like a system.
Well, they may legitimately be confused that from their perspective, because I mean, really, who the fuck knows what demon vision is like, or spirit vision, or whatever. I mean, like that's some seriously hypothetical, philosophical territory there. What does a demon see? What does a spirit see? Perhaps the even the facsimile of the human form just is a light in the darkness somehow.
Well, the thing I was going to point out before, I mean, that's a good theory, right? I mean, I can't think of anything better than that. But what I was going to say is, like, why, we get these stories about a possessed doll, right? And there's many of them. You got Robert the doll, you have, Annabelle. You got this story, and there's at least half a dozen other ones. And then there's that creepy island, like the Island of Dolls, or whatever it's called, right? And that's creepy. But like, we know there's cursed objects, right? I mean, we've heard of cursed chairs, cursed jewelry, cursed paintings, but none of them have personality traits. Like, none of them speak to you. None of them, act like a person to you. They're curses, and like, you got the crying boy painting, it burns down your house. You got the cursed car. Well, everyone who drives it or has a piece of it in there gets into a terrible accident. You have
So do you view cursed objects, and see, like, for me, cursed objects and possessed objects or possessed doll are two like very different phenomena? Because when I think of a cursed object, I think of like some bit of very negative energy has attached itself to this object, whether on purpose or not. and it either resonates the energy from some past event that it was present for, or it resonates the energy or the potential. It's always resonating this very strong. It's almost like that book The Secret, where people talk about manifesting their own destiny. Well, what if you could take that ability to manifest a destiny and put it in an object and make that manifest destiny something bad? Well, then you got a curse.
Well, see, that's the whole point. Is that we've heard lots of cursed objects, and we've heard of possessed dolls. But have you ever heard of possessed objects? Right.
There are stories about objects becoming possessed, right? Like typically it's done in a ritual way where somebody's purposefully calling up some spirit or entity of some kind or another, and putting it like the Dybbuk box.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd say the Dybbuk box is possessed. It seemed more to be like a prison for a spirit that resided within it. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, have you seen...
It was a receptacle that something was forced into rather than, a spirit saying, oh, I want to take over this chair and make anybody who sits in it die.
Right, like, has anybody seen a butcher knife that like sat on a table whispering evil things into somebody's ear, right? Or like, started cursing at. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I haven't, but it would be a fantastic topic for a podcast if somebody had come across a story like that. Because that sounds flippin' amazing. Some intelligent evil weapon that has
escaped
survived
from the castle and Beauty and the Beast. Right? The possessed candlestick.
What it puts me in mind of is like the Spear of Destiny.
Yeah.
These kinds of objects that, not that the Spear of Destiny is a cursed object, but perhaps powerful objects throughout history that perhaps are some sword that's passed from kingdom to kingdom. And every kingdom it's passed through has ended in ruin. Maybe, like you suggest, it's not necessarily cursed as much as some, malign intelligence is residing within this sword. And, it pushes the owner to do terrible things. And because it gets passed from king to king, it's been I don't know. Personally, I haven't heard of anything specific like that, but honestly, at this point, I would not be at all surprised if there are stories like that.
Oh, me either. But like that's what I find interesting about this is that we've got like a half dozen to a dozen stories of possessed dolls that basically the doll is like it becomes like an intelligent sentient thing, right?
Yeah. I guess that leads a little more credence to my theory then, I guess, that perhaps there is something specific about the geometry, the shape of the doll that, even maybe is not just a light in the darkness. Perhaps that's required, perhaps it's part of the formula for possession.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, and that's why, like, I really, dig the theory that you had, because there's got to be something. Like, why have we never heard of an object? I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that, I've been reading stories forever, like my whole life. Watched every horror movie, watched everything, and I've never heard of that before. So if it does exist, it's very, very rare, right? But it's just weird. You get a doll. I mean, if you take away the shape of it and the fact that it resembles a person or whatever. What really separates a plastic doll from, a plastic bowl? It's still plastic, right? So why would a doll have the ability to be possessed like a sentient thing, and a bowl can't? A bowl ends up being the thing that a poltergeist whips across the kitchen table. It's not, the bowl doesn't sit there and saying, pour poison into me and drink me and stuff like that. And anybody who hears that probably isn't right in the head, right? I mean, I just I don't know. I've never heard anything like that before, so I just find it interesting. What's the thing that separates non-animate objects like that?
Or separates the anthropomorphic inanimate objects from the non-anthropomorphic ones.
Right. If only you could define that word for me.
Anthropomorphic just means human shaped.
Okay. Well, you should have just said that. What separates the human-shaped objects from the non? But I understand. That's your way.
That is my way. I'm trying to teach.
You're trying to be Egon from the Ghostbusters.
Don't even get me started on the Ghostbusters.
I love the Ghostbusters.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of exhausted the topic a little bit here, but all the same, I love the story. It's it's the strangeness of it. The inherent mystery that goes along with something like that, and is one of those stories where we'll never know. Was it haunted? Was it not haunted? And what the fuck is 2-0?
And you know what? That's for you, the audience. I'd like to hear what you can come up with from that. And, again, Holly, thanks for sending in that story. It's fantastic. That's what I love about this, doing this show. I get such awesome stories from you guys. And I know they're stories that, like, nobody's really heard before, like they're not stories that you can go Google that you're going to find. A lot of these times, it's like the first time somebody shared one of these stories. Probably the coolest part about doing this. And of course, like, we want to hear all of your stories. I mean, that's kind of what Effed Up Stories is. It's like the online campfire, right? Where the online campfire to connect all campfires. We all sit around these places, we share stories. Well, here's the unified little bonfire where we can share these things with everybody. And so if you do have an Effed Up story, we'd love to get that from you. You can submit that at the official site, which is effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. We'll get it on the website and into a podcast. And also, if you have any information, especially like personal experiences to do with the reptilians, really would like to get that from you, because we're going to be doing a podcast on that. And hopefully we can get some of your information into it. And we have the official Effed Up Stories t-shirts coming. Should have them pretty shortly. I'd say within the next couple of weeks. Very short run. Think of it as very exclusive, even if we do this again. If they might not be the same. So who knows? Maybe they'll be worth something for you to hawk on eBay one day. So yeah. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you very much for joining us. That are a little bit of light in the darkness. Good night.
February 27th. Damn good day. So, it's on a possessed doll. Before we jump into that, though, a couple things I want to jump in and talk about. If you have an effed up story of your own and would like to get that into a podcast and on the website, we'd love to get it from you, and you can do that by submitting it on the official website, which is, I'm having a drink here. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of hiccups here. But, I know I got a problem, right? But anyway, if you want to get that to us, you can do it on the official website, which is effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. Go to the menu, submissions, fill out the form, hit submit. We'll get it and put it on the website. And get it into a podcast. Awesome, right? I've actually been getting a lot of submissions lately, so we got a lot of podcasts coming your way, which reminds me, I have to say this, guys, because I almost feel guilty. I really honestly do try to get back to everybody. Every submission I will get onto the website, but, I'm one guy, and, the more popular. Like moths to a flame, you've thrown caution to the wind for a glimpse into our world. Well, now you're in it.
Welcome to Effed Up Stories.
We get the harder it is to keep up. So right now I'm regularly running on it's like I'm 2 weeks behind on everything. So I'm not trying to be late getting back to anybody. I'm not ignoring anything, but
It's just a question of volume.
it's a question of volume, and I do my best, but I work full time. I got a wife. I got stuff aside from that, so I do my best, but I'm definitely 2 weeks behind pretty regularly now. So if you don't hear from me right away, don't fret. I will get to it. And I know that sometimes like just emails will say, like, not a submission, just like emails, like people like to send me links to stuff and stuff like that. I try to check it all out. I know that there's sometimes that I don't get back or something like that, and my apologies again. It's just one of those things that, I try to tag all my emails, like I flag them and try to remember to go back and do them, but there's just so much and time moves so fast, and there's only so much I can do. So if I missed anybody or I forgot to get back to you, I apologize. You could try again, or just send me a message or let me know somewhere else. It really Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Effed Up Stories. I am your host, Will Pender.
And I'm your co-host, Ryan Sharp.
And tonight we are doing another user-submitted story, this time on a possessed doll. Now, how awesome is that? I've really been on an off-topic. I've really been wanting to see that movie. I think it's called The Boy, and it's based on a doll, and it really reminded me of that story we just covered on Robert the Doll. Anyway, mental note. If anyone's seen it and it was any good, you want to chime in the comments and let me know if it was any good. That'd be cool. So anyway, this is on a possessed doll. It was submitted by Holly. And Holly, if I mispronounce your last name, my apologies. It's kind of my thing. It looks like Viali. Ryan, are you?
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize there was a question mark at the end of that. Viali, yeah. I guess I could work.
Holly Viali. And if we're wrong, my apologies. This was submitted on my birthday. Cool, right? It isn't intentional. It's just it's really hard to catch up. With that said, though, I just wanted to get that out there and let you guys know. Also, we are collecting information on anything you guys can give us on reptilians. And some of you have submitted me some information, some links. It is great. We're collecting it for one of our donators, and he wants to be anonymous, just known as the eccentric listener. We're going to be doing a custom podcast for him because of his generous donation, and his custom podcast is on reptilians. And he also has a personal reason he wants to know about this. It's personal to him. It's something he wants to learn more about, because I guess it involves him personally. Actually, you know what? He had something there. Just hang on a second. See if I got this. Okay. So again, he's anonymous, but he did want me to read this dream, I guess, that got him into this fascination he has with reptilians. And maybe he thought that someone might be able to tell you something about this or whatever. So here's what he says.